Hi everyone, this is Hero, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the balance of spirituality and religion. So the first point I'm going to want to touch on, and this is going to be a relatively short video, is a spiritual versus a religious ego. And what do I mean by that? Well, in today's world, we've kind of been trained that spirituality and religion are kind of opposites of each other. You're either spiritual or you're religious. And as a byproduct of that, religious people tend to form a more religious ego and identification of themselves, and the spiritual people tend to form a very spiritual, ego and identification about themselves. When they're describing their beliefs, views, and philosophies. However, we need to understand that these two aren't enemies. Okay, they can complement each other really well, and they can both have, enormous. They can both provide enormous insight to you. So you don't have to pick whether you're spiritual or religious, okay? You can be both. And I'd actually encourage you to be both because they both have their pros and cons, which I'm going to go over in this video. But that's the first thing we want to understand, that whatever ego you have in yourself whatever ego you have in your head about yourself related to these two topics, that once we learn to break those down, we can actually uplift ourselves, to a higher consciousness even more also. So that's another point. I'm going to go over these two first. So our true path in developing full awareness. So these two are mainly, the main kind of pros to being spiritual. And these two, avoiding temptations of the ego and you don't know what you don't know, are, the main 2 points that I've written down on religion. There's obviously a million, a plethora of points for spirituality and religion, but these two kind of are the main 2 root points that I've identified. And, we can have millions of byproduct symptoms from these, but just to go over these. So our true path in developing full awareness. So as we become more spiritual and evolve ourselves in more spiritual practices and stuff like that, we're able to identify our true path in this human birth more. So what do I mean? We've all took birth as a human in this lifetime, and we all have certain karmas to play out. Okay. And we all have a certain destiny to fulfill. Obviously, we have free will as well, but we have certain things that we have to accomplish in this lifetime, whether it be, quote unquote, good or bad. So being more spiritual helps us become more aware of our true path. And moving on to developing full awareness. So as we travel our true path, we're more aware of why we're doing the things we're doing from a spiritual standpoint, not a mental standpoint. We've been trained to do everything on a mental level, do things for more money, for this, that, a lot of materialistic outcomes. But as we become more spiritual, we can see how we can do things to uplift ourselves at a spiritual level. Now moving on to these two, avoiding temptations of the ego and you don't know. So our ego has ways of throwing tricks at us. So our ego, I made a video on the 3 major traps of the ego. So those traps are very powerful that the ego uses, and unless you're at a very, very high elevated point spiritually, it's hard to avoid these traps. So what religion allows us to do is it sets a guideline on certain things that would be beneficial or not beneficial for you, and by following more of those, you basically are able to avoid your ego traps more, because your ego has a way of convincing yourself not to do those things for its own benefit. Okay, so that's one thing that we need to understand, that our brains can get really tricked easily into making the wrong decisions, or to make decisions that are not beneficial to us spiritually, and religion, the guidelines religion says helps us avoid those temptations. And you don't know what you don't know. Like I said, unless we uplift ourselves at super high conscious level, we're usually stuck on thinking at a mental level. Okay, so these rules, sometimes on a mental materialistic level, they might not make the most sense, or we might not agree with, or we might not want to agree with them. But however, we don't know the end path that those rules, how implementing those rules in our life can we don't know what path those rules are going to take us on. We just think of the very short term materialistic outcome when it comes to following those rules. We're not able to see the larger picture, and to explain this even further, we don't know how the decisions we're making now are even going to affect us, 1 year from now. No one can say 100%. But the higher consciousness, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that power is probably aware of that. So religion, is basically created by very, high beings, very uplifted souls that, had a stronger connection with that higher power. So I would encourage you to take some religion, religious rules seriously, or try to implement some in your life, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how those rules can affect your life in the long run, especially at a spiritual level. And the last point, this is a star point, is acceptance of all religions. So spirituality, everyone has their own spiritual beliefs. Okay, that's what makes it so beautiful. However, religion, we tend to, side with the religion, that we in the house that we were kind of born in. For example, if you grew up a Christian, you're going to tend to side with Christianity. If you're born as a Hindu, you're going to tend to side with Hinduism, and you guys get the point. However, all religions that we're going to have that are out there all have their own purpose, all have their own meaning, and all provide their own unique insights on how you can uplift yourself spiritually. So I'd also encourage you to look a little bit into, actually not a little bit, look a lot deeper into the religions that you weren't necessarily born in. And even if you were born in them, I know a lot of Hindus that have not personally ever read the Vedas, which are the most important books, for all Hinduism. And a lot of the people that I've come across haven't even read that. Okay, which is pretty much like the guideline, or you can think of that as the Bible of Hinduism. Okay, the Upanishads or the Vedas. So I'd encourage you to look a little bit deeper into your own religion, and if you have, or not your own religion, but the religion you were born in, and if you have done that, I'd encourage you to look deeper into other religions that are not your own, as that can also break down your religious ego. And once you do that, like I said, each religion has its own way of providing insight on uplifting you spiritually. So that's discussion on the balance of spirituality and religion. They can both do great things to uplift yourself. Kind of gave some of the pros of each one, and a pro of following both rather than just one. Okay, so that's my discussion on that. If you have any questions, let me know, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thank you.